Okay guys, so now that we understand the very basic of this software, like how to create objects and transform them, I think we can move on to the next chapter, which is creating your own custom 3D objects. Now before we start making models, it's important to understand what these models are made of. So I have this monkey head Suzanne in front of me, and I'll just go into edit mode, and let's discuss what these models are made of. In the entertainment industry, all the models are made of polygons. Okay, now these polygons are made of 4 edges and 4 vertices, and you can select them and manipulate them, shape your model according to your need. And a face could be 3 vertices as well, but it's important and it's a very standard practice to keep your model in polygons to keep the topology very clean, and for the calculation of many other processes like skinning and shading and all. Okay, and also one more thing. Okay, I'll just enable normals from here. You can see each of these faces have one normal assigned to it. Okay, for the construction of a polygon, vertices and edges are used, and that is what we will be dealing with most of the time. But the normals are actually used for shading purpose, like to calculate the direction of the face. Each face have its own normal, and it's in the direction, it's perpendicular to the face's direction. Okay, you can see all the faces have a normal assigned to it. Even the vertices have normals. You can change this to like vertices or edges, but you don't need to actually deal with the normals right now or at the later stage when we are modeling. It's just to make you understand that the construction of the face or the 3D model, what all goes into it. Okay, so to access the vertices and edges, you need to go into edit mode first. Okay, like right now we are in object mode, and in object mode you can create new objects. Okay, like this. But once you select any object and go to the edit mode, you can no longer select other objects, or until you are done with the editing, and you will have to exit the editing mode and go back to the object mode. Okay, and the shortcut to enter the edit mode is tab. You can press tab, go to the edit mode, and tab to exit again. I'm going to delete these 2 models. I'll press tab and go to the edit mode, and I'll select this vertex. Now just like in object mode, all your transformation commands work in edit mode. Like you can press G and you can move it into any direction you want. You can select multiple vertices or faces and edit them. I can make it look like a Mojo Jojo from Powerpuff Girls. I'm just trying to explain, it's not that we are modeling anything right now. So you can use all your transformation commands, like even the local, global, snapping options, everything just like how you work in the object mode. You can use all those commands in editing mode. Okay, alright. And to select a vertex in editing mode, you will have to press 1, and you can see now one vertex mode is selected. If you press 2, this will change to the edge mode. So now when you click on the mesh, it will select edges. Okay, and if you press 3, it will select the entire face. So 1 is for vertex, 2 for edge, and 3 for face. Okay, like I said, a face could be 3 vertices as well, but it's a standard practice. For a good topology, you will have to practice how to keep your model with, in polygons. Okay, and we will talk about the methods in some other chapters. Alright, I'm going to create some very basic geometry now, so that you understand how to transform these vertices or edges or create new faces, make your own custom shapes. Okay, so I have this box. I'll go to the edit mode, press tab to go to the edit mode, and select 3, press 3 to select faces. Now what I want is, I want to extend this box and create maybe a shape like Tetris. Okay, so to extend this geometry, I'll press extrude. The short command is E on the keyboard. Simply press E and move it in the direction where you want to extrude. Okay, press E again and move this up. Now you may be wondering why we have created 3 subdivisions. That is because we cannot extrude a face anywhere we want. Okay, there should be some provision for it. Now you can see there are 4 edges available here, so I can extrude this one and make one Tetris like shape. Now if I just make a cube and if I extend this in Z direction, and now if I want to make a Tetris like shape, select this one and extrude, it will extrude the entire the face. Okay, we need some cuts over here, like I said, some provision for a mesh. So you will have to keep this in mind whenever you're modeling something. You will have to plan your mesh. It's not very complicated thing. You will get used to it maybe in a day or two. Okay, all right. So E is for extrusion, and this command is available over here, extrude. Let's say you have cube and it doesn't have any subdivisions, okay, but you want to add few subdivisions now. To do that, you will have to press Ctrl R on the keyboard. So you can see now I have this highlighted edge right in the middle of 2 loops. Okay, one is the on the top and one is at the bottom. So in whichever direction you want to create a loop, click to confirm it, and then after that drag where you want the loop to be. You can either place it over here and then press Ctrl R again to place another loop, or you can simply press Ctrl R and before confirming scroll your mouse wheel upwards for to assign the number of subdivisions you want. Sorry, to assign how many number of loops you want. Scroll wheel up to add more loops, scroll wheel down to decrease the number of loops. So now we have 2 loops in the center, and now we can create another Tetris shape. Okay, this command, the loop cut, is available over here if you want to access it from the toolbar. But like I said, it's always better to work with the shortcuts because it's not effective at all to work with the mouse. So you can see if I click over here and add a loop cut, and then I'll have to go to this menu to increase the number of edges and adjust the parameters, which is very time taking. I would suggest you just press Ctrl R. You can remember it like R is for ring. Okay, it creates an entire ring. Ctrl R. So this is much easier. All right. Now one more command I want to discuss. I'll go to the edit mode, and let's say I want to give some chamfer to these edges. Okay, like a bevel. I want to make this one look like it has some working radius. So what I can do is I can select, let's say, these faces with the help of shift, and if I press Ctrl B and drag, it will make this nice bevel on the edges. Now if I scroll the wheel up, it will make the bevel smooth and add more subdivisions. To confirm, simply click again. Now you can see your model have this nice radius on the top edges. I'll make a duplicate again. Like any other object, you can delete the face with the help of delete. Simply press delete on the keyboard and choose faces. If you want to delete edges, then it's going to delete the edges which are selected. Okay, and if you delete these edges, then it's going to delete these one as well, because the edges can't be just in the air or the loose. Okay, it has to be connected. It's a very easy process to delete a face. And there are many other options available, like dissolve vertices, dissolve edges, dissolve faces. Let's say if you want to delete these edges, but you do not want to make a hole over here. If I delete edges now, you can see it makes a hole. Okay, but instead if I press delete and dissolve edges, you can see edges have disappeared, but it has created a different face and covered the geometry. Okay, so it's disconnected. It's not the ideal geometry, but I think you understand the concept. Okay, so I'm going to delete all these objects now. Now let's talk about the smooth modifier. All right, before I talk about other tools in the object editing mode, I just want to explain how the low polygon geometry works with the smooth modifier, so that you know how to plan your mesh. Let's say if I have a cube, all the time we will be creating objects in the low polygon, very low resolution of mesh. You do not want to make your geometry way too smooth, so that it looks good, but it's not going to work for the animation if it's too heavy. To do that, what we use is we use smooth modifier. It's called subdivision surface, in Blender. Now if I apply this subdivision surface, remember I'm in modifier properties over here. In the generate, select subdivision surface. So what it does is it subdivides uh, the geometry. If I disable this now, you can see in the wireframe, like there are total 1 2 3 4 5 6 faces, 6 polygons, okay. But if I switch this on, it pulls all the edges and the faces towards each other and makes it smooth and adds a subdivision in between, okay. Like each of the face have now 4. If I increase the number of subdivisions, this one viewport, it's going to add more subdivisions and make the geometry more smooth. I think 2 is enough for most of the time we are dealing with geometry. We will talk about this in detail later, but we will talk about how to make your meshes smooth as we proceed further. Okay, so I'm going to delete this now. So now I'm going to create let's say a spoon, or maybe a clock, or maybe a table, okay. And let's just have a look at different objects around in the room and try to imagine the construction of these objects, okay, and how the wireframe of these objects are going to look like in 3D. So if I take a spoon and try to imagine this in wireframe, this is what it's going to look like. Now this is just for your own planning. You do not have to do this every time, and you will get used to this and the more you practice 3D modeling. So now I'll try to apply this construction method and go to the edit mode. I have a simple cube in front of me. I'll select this face, scale this down like this. Alright, now we are creating a spoon. What I want is I can go to the wireframe, go to the vertex mode, and stretch these over here and scale them down like this. But what I want is I want some geometry like this, like this. So to do that, what I would need is I would need some points over here, some points over here, maybe extend this all the way till here. So I'll select these and place them over here, and I'll press Ctrl R and create 3 subdivisions, okay. I'll click to confirm. Now press B and select these vertices and scale them up like this, and select these, scale them up like this, select these and scale them up again like this, okay. Now I need some subdivision over here as well, so that I can form this side of the mesh and also the handle of the spoon. I'll press Ctrl R and scroll wheel up and place them right in the middle. Click to confirm, and I'll press B and select these two, move them over here. Now I can select these two and move them into X direction. Now I can press 3 on the keyboard, 3, select this face and extrude it like this. Now you can scale this down and press E to extrude again, scale this down, press E to extrude again, and scale this up like this, press E to extrude again and scale this up, okay. If I go to the solid mode now, and I'll just so you will see now we have a very basic geometry which looks like a spoon, but we need some dent over here. So I'll go to the wire mesh again, and I'll select all these go to the vertex mode. I'll select all these faces or vertices and move them into Z direction like this. Alright, and if you'd like, you can add one more subdivision over here to smooth it out. Maybe you can select these one. It's something like a bend, okay. And select this, you know, this shape of the spoon, and this is just to clear out the concept. So now I have just enough points so that if I use the subdivision surface now, this will smooth out my entire geometry. And if I increase the subdivision to 2, now you will see this does look like a spoon, okay. If you want to edit this further to tweak the shape, you can press I'll switch on the overlays. So now you can see when you are into edit mode and subdivision modifier is on, you can see all the edges, the construction edges are like what we see in the edges and vertices, and how these are like to create the geometry smooth, all the edges are getting pulled towards each other. And because of that, what is happening is we do not have any sharp corners. And to deal with this, we will have to create more dense mesh at the corners, okay, so that when we apply subdivision modifier, so the edges which are closest to each other will not get pulled apart too much, okay, and it will create a sharp corner. To clear that out, I'm going to create one cube over here. If I apply subdivision modifier, now you'll see our entire cube have a very smooth looking geometry, okay. But if I go to edit mode and select these four edges, and if I bevel this one with the help of Control B, now you'll see this area is round, but this area is much sharper and have a flat surface. That is happening because all these four edges, like these dense edges actually are so close to each other and have enough strength to hold the mesh tightly. Like if the two edges are very far from each other, when you apply subdivision modifier, they become round. But if the two edges are very close to each other, they don't get pulled apart too much and create very sharp corners. And by default in Blender, you see all these geometry faces, okay, in the shading mode. If you want to create smooth geometries, you will have to, now to make this one smooth, simply press spacebar and type smooth shade, okay. Once I click smooth shade, you'll see I can no longer see the faces. If you want to show faces, then type shade flat, okay. This is just so that you can see the construction of the mesh, but when you are rendering, you will have to apply shade smooth. It's not any modifier, it's just a shading method. You can also change this from over here, from the object menu, smooth, shade smooth and shade flat. To understand this more, I'll create one cube over here and apply subdivision surface. Create two subdivisions, okay. Scale this up, and if I go to edit mode now, let's say I'll create one edge over here and slide this just like right here, and I'll delete these faces, okay. Sorry. Now let's say I want to create something like a hat. I'll isolate this with the / on number pad. I'll bring one loop with the help of Control R, click to confirm, and just drag this right over here. Now I'll select this face and extrude it. Okay, now what I want is, you can see this area is actually like smoothed out, and I wanted this edge to be like much sharper over here so that I could see a nice shape of the hat. Right now it's getting all mixed up. If I select this entire loop, it's important to select the entire loop because otherwise it will not form the geometry in the polygons if I only bevel this one. Now select this entire loop. You can see in the wire mesh I have all the four edges selected. Now if I press Ctrl B and decrease these number of segments and only bring it to 1, now click to confirm. Now I'll press spacebar and shade smooth. You can see this one now have very sharp looking shape over here, unlike before. So keep this in mind when you're creating something. You will have to plan like the first thing, it shouldn't be unnecessarily heavy. It should just have enough faces so that once you apply smooth modifier, it will give enough control so that you can manipulate your mesh for the animation, for the rendering process. I mean, all these things right now will sound too much, but once we do a quick marathon of creating maybe 5 or 10 objects, you will start to understand these concepts much more clearly. And that is what we are going to do after we discuss the initial tools in editing mode. We'll create maybe 5 or 10 objects to clear out how to work with the meshes. Now I'll press / again. In the outliner, you can see I have all these objects. If this is confusing, I can just double click and rename it. Maybe this one spoon, and this one into, I can make this one into mug. Okay, I can press extrude and scale it down like this. Okay, for now, I'll just leave it as it is. Now, before we get into the details of editing tools, it's important that we discuss the selection methods, because one mesh is made of so many vertices and it's very inconvenient to select multiple vertices at a time manually. So there are selection options available in Blender or any other 3D softwares to work with the complex geometry. To clear it out, I'll just quickly hide these ones, and in the center now I'll create one UV sphere over here and scale it up. Now I'll go to the edit mode. To select multiple, just like any other normal selection, you'll have to hold down the shift key. Okay, now let's say if you want to select this entire ring or entire loop. Okay, it's called loop in 3D in Blender or any other 3D software. To do that, you'll have to hold down the Alt key and select an edge. Okay, now if I hold down the Alt key and click on this edge, it will select the entire loop. Okay, but if I hold down the Alt key and click on this vertical edge, it will select this loop. Okay, to select multiple loops, you'll have to Alt click over here and then press Shift and Alt click over here, and while holding down the shift you can select multiple loops and rings. Okay, you can quickly select multiple loops and move them around. It's much easier to select like this. The other way of selecting is you can select one edge, and let's say if you want to select all the edges till over here, so you can hold down the control key and just click over here, and it will automatically pick up the best path available to reach the target selection. Let's say if I go and control click over here, then it will take the shortest path. So you'll have to guide it around. Let's say if you want to select from over here to here, then you'll have to click first here, then here. I mean, guide it like this. Otherwise it's going to select the shortest path and reach the ultimate selection. Okay, now if you want to study it more, what you can do is you can go to the select menu over here. Just notice when we are in object mode, these menus are very limited, like view, select, add an object. When you press tab, then these menus will expand, and there will be many other options available which are to do with related to the mesh editing. Now if you click, you can see it's a mesh, vertex, edge, face, and also you can access these by pressing Ctrl V for vertex menu, Ctrl E for edge menu, and Ctrl F for face menu. And these shortcuts will only work in the object editing mode. If you press Ctrl E in object mode, it's not going to do anything unless it's assigned to something else. Okay, and also you have this shortcut called W, which is this very special contextual menu, and the most important commands which are related to the editing the mesh are accessible from here. Okay, let's say you just want to subdivide this mesh. You'll press W and subdivide. I'll select these and subdivide these. Okay, and there are bevel, extrude, knife, edge. Most useful commands are available here, and you can also customize this menu. You can edit context menu, and we will talk about this later, and I don't want to confuse you in multiple directions right now. Okay, and if you are working with the left click selection, I think this menu will be available on your right click. So we were talking about the selection, and there are several other methods available to select mesh. One is the box select, which we already know. If you press B, you can select with the box. If you go in the wire mesh, it's going to select the other side of the box as well. And if you go press invert or Control I on the keyboard, it's going to invert the selection. Okay, and now there is a circle selection. You can simply press C on the keyboard, and with the circle you can paint out the selection. Okay, with the by scrolling the mouse, you can increase the diameter of this brush. It's easy to select like this. Okay, very convenient. And now we have a select random. It's going to select random faces. And also each of the command we use, there is always a pop-up over here related to that, and you can adjust these parameters before moving on to the next tool. Okay, and then we have select sharp edges, and because we do not have any sharp edges over here, it's a very smooth subdivided mesh. Okay, to understand this, we are going to select the edges of the bottom and bevel this one. Okay, and increase the subdivision first. And now if I go to the select menu, select sharp edges, it's going to select the sharp edges only. Now you can see these edges are smooth, and at the top it's selecting all these 4 edges because these are creating a 90-degree sharp angle. Select sharp edges. Okay, but at the bottom it's not selecting these edges because the angle between these edges is very smooth. Okay, it's not considered sharp. All right, let's say if you are creating something like maybe a robotic arm or something which is like hard surface model, and you want to select the sharp edges quickly. Okay, and you can use this command and create nice bevel around the sharp corners. Okay, these are much more like advanced commands. Non-manifold is known for the faces which are not closed. Loose geometry, like if you have let's say I'll press V on the keyboard to detach these two vertices. Let's say I press V, then it breaks it again. So now if I select I'll select non-manifold, you can see it's selecting all the broken edges, like which are not closed. It's supposed to be closed. Okay, to keep the mesh clean, let's say if you have created any object and there are some broken edges and you want to fix them because it's creating some problem, you can use this command and use non-manifold. Okay, and now let's say if let's say if I have this face and I create a duplicate of this, or let's say I have this vertex and I create a duplicate of this. Now this vertex in itself is not going to create any geometry. Okay, you can see this vertex in edit mode, but when you go to object mode, because there is no edge or no polygon, it's a loose geometry, this vertex. Okay, it's bad for any geometry. Okay, like sometimes you can see these vertices, sometimes you cannot see these vertices. To quickly clean up your geometry, you can select this one, loose geometry. It's going to select this geometry now, and you can delete it. Okay, dissolve vertices. And I would encourage you to just test these commands out and try to understand their use, because most of the time we will be creating our own custom geometry. Basic primitives are for very limited use. To get comfortable editing an object, it's very important to understand the selection methods available. Okay, I think we have covered the most important commands for selection methods, and now let's move on to the next stage, and we are going to create maybe 5 or 10 models of different type and use the tools available on the left and their meaning. Okay, alright, so there are a few more options for selection, and for that I'll just bring up this Suzanne model. Now if you go to the edit mode, press tab. I'll just enable screencast here. So when you select any vertex and press Ctrl plus on the number pad, this will grow your selection. Okay, let's say Ctrl plus for expanding your selection. Ctrl minus will shrink your selection. Okay, and this is just so that if you want to quickly just select few of the faces over here. Okay, just select all these 4 faces and press Ctrl plus, and this will select your entire area. Okay, so this is a very handy command. And also now when you're selecting when you're making any selection, let's say with a box or a circle, like when you're making any selection, it could be a bit difficult to select different elements within the object. So right now this eye is a different object. I mean within this object there are multiple elements. Okay, and this eye is a separate mesh. Okay, and this eye is a separate mesh. Now if you want to just select these different elements, you can press whatever is linked to this mesh. Okay, now if I go over here in any mode, vertex mode, edge mode, or face mode, if I go over here and press L, now this will select everything which is linked to this face. Okay, now if I go over here and press L, this will select everything which is linked to this face. Now if I go over here and press L, now this will select only the face and not the eyes. Okay, so this linked faces is very important and very useful when you are working with a model which have a lot of elements within the one object. All right, now let's talk about the most interesting one here, and this is called proportionate editing. Okay, and in the first chapter, as we were discussing all these options, I mentioned this one we'll discuss in the next chapter when we are editing mesh objects. Okay, now I think this is the right time we get into this one. So I'll just move this one and create few loop cuts so that we can have some smooth mesh over here. Okay, so that we can have some smooth mesh over here. Now what proportionate editing does is, if you are coming from other softwares, this is like a soft selection. Okay, now if I go over here and select any face or any multiple faces, if I move these are like a hard selection. Okay, I mean these are creating some very hard deformation in my mesh. Okay, now if I move this one, now I have this weird looking I just want some smooth transition and not just to move one face. Okay, so if I enable this one, see what happens. Now it's not just moving my one face, it's also picking up, it's also influencing other vertices around that face, and it's working like a brush. Okay, now I can scroll wheel up to increase this influence and scroll wheel down to decrease this influence. Okay, and this is a very powerful thing, and when you are modeling organic objects, this is your friend over here. Okay, now let me tell you when this gets fun. Okay, now let's say if you want to, I'll just create one plane over here and rotate this in 90 degree and move this one over here. Okay, and create a few loop cuts over here. All right, and delete this one. Now when you are in object editing mode, and let's select this one. Okay, disable this option for now. So now if I'm moving this polygon over here, if I want to activate proportionate editing, I'll simply press O on my keyboard. Okay, now this will enable proportionate editing. Okay, now you see I have this brush activated. Now I can scroll wheel up and down and move this thing. Okay, and I can rotate this thing. All right, but okay, this is one of the way. Now if you combine this with the 3D cursor, this gets a lot interesting. Okay, if you click over here, let's say if you want to make some leaf, okay, or some maybe grass strand or something, then you can use your 3D cursor, and now this will take turn and influence your mesh from that 3D cursor. Okay, now let's say if you want to bend this one in this direction, now see what happens. Okay, and you can increase or decrease the influence of the brush and start shaping up very organic forms. And if I press this and RZ, then I can rotate this one in Z direction and create a nice twist. Okay, so soft selection is a very powerful thing, and I would say this will take some time to get used to, but I don't think it's a very difficult thing to understand, and you will get used to them by the time we model rest of the stuff in this chapter. Okay, and there are different mods over here, and right now we are using only the smooth option. Okay, if I go to the edit mode and move this one, okay, let's go to the top view. Okay, now if I move this vertex, okay, I'll just bring up one more view over here, TN, and just look at this in perspective. Okay, now if I move this one over here with the soft selection on, now see what is happening. Only the eyes are moving and lips are not moving. Okay, that is because right now it's only working in that particular region around that vertex. Okay, and if I change this to project from view, then it will project the brush from the view and it will influence everything which is happening behind that brush. Okay, now there is one more option over here which is called connected only. Okay, now if you want to only influence this vertex and not influence the other elements which are not connected to this part. Okay, let's say if you want to only influence the skin but don't want to touch the eyes, then you can enable connected only. Now see what happens. It will only work on the vertices which are connected and which are as a one mesh, and this is a very useful one. And there are several different methods over here. Now right now we are using only the smooth. Okay, one very interesting one is the random over here. If you pick random, and then let's say if I choose this brush and increase my brush size, it will move all the vertices in very random way. Okay, now I can use this for scale as well. Okay, and rotation. So this sometimes if you just want to give your vertices some random behavior, then you can simply choose this command. And also if you want to create a, let's bring one plane over here. Okay, and give it some subdivisions. Now right now we are using smooth. Okay, I'll move them in Z direction. Okay, now if I change this to sharp, then this will create a nice pointed deformation. And if I change this to linear, this will create a straight out pyramid. Okay, so get used to this one, and this is going to be a lot helpful when you are modeling very organic surfaces. Okay, and this is not a selection, but this is also kind of a selection, and it's just a different term is used in the Blender. It's called proportional editing, but this is also considered as one kind of a selection. Okay, all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go through these tools available in edit mode. Okay, and try to understand the meaning of them and what are the shortcuts for them. All right, so the first one is the extrude tool. Okay, and I think we already talked about this one. You can extrude any face and either move them, rotate them, and scale them. Like if you need to, let's say if I scale this one up and create an extrude over here and another extrusion, and scale this down and extrude this one. So this one actually, like it extends the selected face geometry, or even it works even with the edges. So like you can see, I already have a like a hammer looking thing just with the extrude object. Okay, and each of these like most of these tools have some multiple options available. Now the extrude have extrude along normals, individual, or the extrude to cursor. Okay, and to understand this one, I'll bring up one cylinder instead. All right, so what I'll do is quickly create a cylinder over here, cylinder 16. Okay, I'll scale this down. Now if I select each alternate face, and if I try to extrude this now, it only works in one direction. Okay, but I want these to extrude in their own direction. So for that you can use extrude along normals like this. Okay, so before I confirm it, I'm going to quickly create a duplicate of this. Now extrude along normal, you know, like it works in each face's own direction, in normal direction. All right, place it over here, and now we have a third option, which is extrude individual. Now to understand this one, what I'll do is I'll select group of two. Now let's say if I use extrude along normals for these ones, what is happening is it extrudes perfectly, but it's taking group of two and like it's keeping them together, all the two polygons, and making them a group. Okay, what I want is I want to extrude them but then separate them out. So for that, extrude individual is a good option. All right, I know it's a very bad looking geometry, but just to explain the concept. Okay, And now let's say if I create a plane over here. All right, and the fourth option is extrude to cursor. So you see wherever you click with the cursor, it extrudes. Okay, I think it's the same option which we used for with the control click. I don't know if we used it before or no, but if you select any edge or vertex or any polygon and control click in any direction in edit mode, it automatically extrudes and create a smooth transition in previous edges as well. Okay, now you can, let's say, scale this up and extrude this one like this, and you have nice grass looking strand over here. Okay, so let's say if I create a duplicate out of this and select this geometry, scale it down. Okay, I'll combine these together and maybe smooth them out with control 1 2 3 R for subdivisions. Once you press control 1 or 2, depending on which number you pressed, it automatically applies the smooth subdivision surface modifier, and you can see if you press control 2, it's going to be 2 subdivisions. If you press control 1, it's going to be 1 subdivision. So yeah, this control click option or the extrude at 3D extrude at cursor is very useful for quickly creating something very organic. Then the next option we have is inset. Okay, so I can press I and create a nice inset out of it. Sorry, I'll just select this face and press I, and you can see it creates a nice inset in just simple one step. And then after that you can select these and create extrude, and you have some nice looking hard surface, maybe, I don't know. So let's discuss the next one. You'll have to pardon me for this noise in the background. My room is not soundproofed. And the next one is the bevel, and I think we have already discussed bevel option. You can select any edge, and if you press Ctrl B on the keyboard, it creates a nice bevel, and you can use the scroll wheel up and down to increase the subdivisions, and it creates a nice bevel or the chamfer at the given edges. Okay, now let's say, what is the next option over here? The loop cut. And loop cut is same as control R. Press control R and insert a loop cut, and use the scroll wheel up and down to decide the number of edges, and once done you can just slide them where you want and confirm with the click. Okay, and the next one is the the knife is actually for creating your own custom cuts. Let's say I don't want something like a very straight or like a loop cut, so I can do that. I can press K on the keyboard, and let's say I want a cut like this and confirm it with the enter. Okay, so you have nice knife cut over here, and you will have to connect these edges depending on what kind of topology you're looking for, but we'll discuss this that later. All right, next one is the bisect tool. The bisect one is similar to not similar to knife. It actually cuts the geometry through and through. Let's say if I select the bisect tool and select the polygons, you can see it creates a through and through cut. Now you can use these options, modify this option. Now if I create bisect again over here, let's say I select all the geometry and create bisect, I can use this option to maybe create some nice looking rocks. This is very interesting one. Okay, I have like a diamond looking shape already. Now let's say, okay, I'll subdivide this one first, and okay, don't get confused what I'm doing right now. This is just to explain one command which is not available over here, I think. Okay, let's say I have a geometry like this. Okay, I cut hole out of these two spheres, and I select these two edge loops with the Alt and Shift. Okay, now I want to create something like a dumbbell out of it. So to do that, press space bar, type bridge edge loops. Now it creates bridge in between two selected loops. Now you can modify this one with a number of cuts and like what kind of twist you want, and maybe create a bulge in between. So this one is not available over here. You'll have to either access this one from face menu, I guess, or you can simply type bridge command over here. Now the poly build is a very interesting one, and this one is actually used very heavily when you are using retopo. Like I'm going to isolate this one. Now polytopo, with the control click, if you remember, we can create geometry like this, okay, but that is the only option available. But if I click on polytopo, what this does is this gives us much more control. Let's say if I click and drag from here, it creates a polygon, okay, but if I control and click somewhere near the edge, it creates triangle, okay, and if I control click near edge again, it converts that triangle into a polygon, okay. Now let's say if I drag this one over here and then I want to build one polygon over here, okay, now I'll have to control and come somewhere in the middle so that I can see the both edges working, and then drag from the center. It's a very useful for using the retopo, like when you're tracing some very high resolution organic models. And if you press shift click, it deletes the face, and I'll create a cube. Now the next one is a spin tool. Now what this does is if I select spin tool and select this one over here and drag it, it creates like it gives it a nice spin from the pointer location. Now my 3D cursor is over here, okay. Let's say if I place my 3D cursor over here and then drag it, then it's going to take this in consideration and my 3D cursor and create a nice spin out of it, okay. So let's see what are the other options available. Once you are done with this, you can adjust the number of steps from here, the angle, and you can change the center from here. You can also change the axis after you're done. So I think to understand the use of this, what we can do is we can create a cube, and let's say I want to create a pipe, okay, which turns like perfectly. So let's say I want to make some round shape out of it. Then I'll click over here and then turn it from here just like this, okay. And once I'm done, I can extrude this one with control click, okay. So, and just like that, I have some nice looking round pipe. The next one is smooth, which like if you have some, let's say, some very organic shape, and if you want to smooth it out a bit, then you can select these and use smooth command, and it will smooth out all the edges, give you a nice rounded shape. It's not like a subdivision surface, it's not creating any subdivisions, it's only creating the geometry more smooth. And this one is randomize, like the name suggests, it randomizes all the faces. Now the next one is edge slide. To have a better understanding of this, I'll create a cube and I'll create a bevel at the top, okay. I'll create one more edge over here. Now if I move this edge normally with a transformation command, I can move this up and down, but you can see it's not actually moving on the surface. I mean it's going to create some dent like this, okay. I can use edge slide command, okay, and what this does is this slides the edge without actually deforming the geometry. It slides the edge in between the neighboring edges. Then we have shrink and flatten, and to understand this one, I'll bring the monkey head. What this one does is it shrinks the geometry or flattens out, like all the faces and all the edges are moving in their own normal direction. This one is a very useful one when you are doing some organic modeling. This one is the rip region, which is like for breaking the geometry. Let's say I want to break, like if I move this right now, it's connected and it's moving the other edges as well. If I just want to rip this apart, I'll press V on the keyboard and rip this apart. Okay, now if you want to merge them again, so you can just type it out in the space bar, the search menu. Just type merge and click on the merge. You can either choose at first, at last, center, the cursor. I'll select the center, and the edges are merged again. Okay, and this is also available in the mesh menu if you want. There are many other commands which are not available over here but are in the menus, like for the vertex, edge and face. When you feel the need of some particular command, there is always a solution which is available, and you can just have a look at, like, if you have some doubt related to like a face or edge or a vertex, then you can look at the menu and you will find some related commands available within here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, so far we have been creating some very random looking and odd looking shapes. To conclude this day, what we are going to do is, we'll create some maybe 5 or 10 like good looking 3D models which make sense and are not like random looking shapes, and we'll use all these commands while creating those models. Okay. Alright guys, so now that we have discussed all the tools in object editing mode, I think it's a right time we put them into right use and use them into right context, so that we understand the true meaning of them and how they can work when combined together. And instead of, it's always better to test out these tools on actual 3D models which make sense, instead of just on the cubes. Alright, so we'll create maybe 5 or 6 models so that we can work with the different scenarios. So the first one is a very simple one. I'll create a pencil, and to do that I'll bring a cylinder and make subdivision, change the subdivisions in the pop-up menu from here. Now I'll go to the front view, rotate this one in 90. I'll type 90 on the number pad when rotating and place this right above here. So I'll go to the object editing mode and press 3 and just move these faces a bit over here, and press Ctrl R to add a loop cut over here. Ctrl R again, click and drag to create a loop cut over here. Now this one for the front and this one for the eraser. I'll select this face and scale this down, and this partition I can select all these edges with the alt click and press Ctrl B to make this one smooth like a eraser in the back. Now I'll select all these faces and press Shift D, just like how you duplicate object in object mode, and right click to cancel it and scale this up a bit. Okay, and scale this one in, place it over here. Now in the search menu on the space bar, I'll just type separate and separate this selection. Now this one is a separate object. In the object editing mode, I can simply select all these faces and extrude along region to give it some thickness like this. Maybe I can create some interesting shapes over here, like what you see on pencil. I can press Ctrl R and create subdivisions, 3 loops over here, and maybe press Ctrl B to create 3 bevels over here. Now if I use extrude along normals now, and you can see I have nice looking partition line over here. Okay, now for the front part, what I can do is I can use the knife tool to create a nice looking cut over here. I'll press K on the keyboard and start cutting out from the edges. K is the shortcut for the knife tool. When you're done, press enter, and now I can select all these edges and create a bevel over here, and just like before, create a small looking extrusion just to give it a separation line. Okay, now I'm just going to switch on this cavity mode just so that we can see the partition lines better. Now I can select all these faces in wireframe mode and separate these as well, and apply subdivision surface and type out smooth to bring the smooth shading option and scale this up maybe. Okay, so I think you have a nice looking pencil object over here. It's a very cartoonish pencil. It's not like a real one, but it does have a good shape. Okay, now if you see what all commands we used knife tool to create cut over here, and we used bevel to smooth these out, extrude along normals, and control R, which is the edge cut, to make these loop cuts, just so that we can separate selection. I'm going to separate this one, and now if I select random in shading option, you can see I have this like much more visible view. Alright, so I'll select all these objects and maybe create one new collection in outliner and call this pencil. Now select all these objects and drag them in pencil folder or the collection. Alright, now I'm going to hide this one. The next object, I think we'll create one sandal. Okay, I'll bring basic cube and go to the object editing mode and start to shape it up like a sandal. What we need is, we definitely need more subdivisions over here. I'll press Ctrl R to maybe create 2 loops over here. Okay, and now I can select this face and bring this down like this, and select this entire edge loop. You can see how this is shaping up like a sandal already. I can select this face and move this down. In edge selection, with Alt select all these faces. Now I can start adding more details. What I can do is I can create one inset over here, press I and create an inset. But before that, what I can do is I can select these 2 loops and create a bevel like this, and then I can select these 2, press inset, maybe not so much, a little bit, delete these faces, and then I can select these 2 loops and give it some bevel as well, a very little. Okay, now I can press Ctrl R and create a subdivision over here, loop cut, and one loop cut over here, and I'll select these 2 and maybe go to the, sorry, now you see I think I messed up the form a bit because I was only working in one view. So it's important that every time you make some changes, you have multiple views in front of you, and you can see the form in different angles as well. Now what I'll do is I'll select these 2 loops and maybe I can scale them in Y direction. I'll press S and Y, scale them up like this. So you can see it's giving it some radius. I mean, instead of a flat sandal, it's much rounded now. Now what I can do is I can delete this entire face and select this entire loop and extrude this like this. Okay, and maybe you can type grid fill and yeah, so I can fill this up like this. Okay, now I'll create a loop cut over here and just move this out. Now I'm sure this form is not a perfect one for the sandal, but what I'm going to do is not really worry about the perfection right now, and just create some very basic models so that we can memorize these commands and we can have some fun with it. Okay, now I'll create an extrusion and move this down like this, create an extrusion again, move this down, and another extrusion. Alright, if I apply subdivision surface, now you can see it looks like a sandal. It's not a very good one, but we can definitely make this one better. Okay, the first thing is we need to convert this one into polygon. because right now it's a hexagon or something. So I'll switch this off and maybe extrude this one again first of all, so that I have some sharp corner. I can delete this one and select this entire loop. Now if I press grid fill on this one, it's not working because these number of edges are not even. I think they are in odd number. Yeah, they are 11 sides, and to make grid fill work I would need one more loop cut. So I can create loop cut over here, and now if I select this entire loop and press grid fill, now you can see I have much better looking shape, and these are into polygons. You can make this one a bit better if you want. I'll switch on the proportionate editing so that with the scroll wheel adjust the radius of brush. I'll select connected only and just pull this out, and now I can start tweaking the shape a bit. I'm sure I need to make this one a bit round like this, and maybe scale these up. Okay, and maybe I can select this entire loop of polygons. With the control I can create something like a border, maybe create one more extrusion. Alright, now I need some sharp corners over here. So what I'll do is I'll select this entire loop and press Ctrl V to create a bevel. Maybe just one is enough. I don't want to make it too hard. Now this one is definitely need to be harder, and for that what I can do is I can simply press E to extrude it, and you can see now this shape is hard. I just want to bring the smooth shading over here. Now for the internal part, what I can do is I can select these faces. Maybe I can create a duplicate out of them. Press Ctrl plus on keyboard to expand your selection a bit. Yeah. Press Shift D and bring this out. Just delete these ones and select this, close this with a grid fill. Yeah. And I can separate this entire object by selection, and so that I can use this like a inside of the sandal. I don't think I need these. I can delete these and select this edge, grid fill. So this one is much smoother now. I can bring this over here and switch on the subdivision on this. Yeah. Just shift this up a bit. Alright, so I think we have something which looks like a sandal. This is definitely not a good looking one, but I'm just trying to make you understand what the use of each of these commands are. You can tweak this or add more details however you want, and keep on working on this if you like, but we need to move ahead and discuss a few more things. I think it's sandal. So the next one is going to be a simple coffee mug. I'll create one, bring a circle in the center and change these subdivisions to something like 18. Yeah, 18 is fine. And then now this one is a polygon circle, this is not a curved circle. Now I'll go to the edit mode and select all these edges and extrude these in a Z direction. Okay, now I'll just scale this up. My proportionate editing is on. I just don't need this one right now. I'll scale this up and I'll select all of these faces and create one extrusion and scale this down, something like this. Maybe something like this, and create another extrusion, create one more and scale this down like this. Press E and scale this down again. I'm creating simple extrusions, repeating the same command over and over. Now this one I can grid fill. Okay, my grid fill was already in the search because I just used it in previous object. Now for this one, you can either leave it round, or you can add Control R and add a few loop cuts over here. Now I just want to make this one like a bit smooth. So what I can do is I can turn on this proportionate editing object. Maybe I need more loops. 1 second. I'll add this much for now, and I'll select these two and scale these up. Because my proportionate editing is on, the surrounding edges are also like getting influenced a bit. I'll do this one in front view so that I don't mess up the shape in other views. First I'll select this and then these two. Alright, so I have some roundness over here. I can now what you can do is you can select the entire geometry, and we can use extrude along normals to give it some thickness. You can also use a modifier for this, which is called solidify. Alright, so I leave it over here, and now to give this one a bit smoothness, let's see how this one looks right now. Okay, so I want this one to be a bit rounder. I'll press Ctrl R, add one loop cut over here, and I'll select these two loops with Alt and Shift and give this a bit of a bevel. Okay, so that this one is like not so smooth. Okay, alright. Now these shapes becoming round as well. We can give some bevel over here as well, something like this. Alright, and I'll just switch off. Yeah, so all these edges are now sharp, and now what we need is a simple handle. I'll just make a duplicate just in case if I made any error. You can, if you want something round looking, you can use you can select in which axis you want spin tool to work. I think yeah, Y axis I need spin tool to work in. I'll click over here. Now I'll start rotating this and create one nice looking handle. Okay, now this one looks like perfect, but if you want to connect this, you can delete this face and delete this face and select you can delete these as well, and I'll select these two loops and just type bridge edge loops, and now these two are connected. Alright, I'll just select these 4 edges and maybe create one bevel so that it's a bit sharper. Alright, so we have a good looking mug, and we can name this one mug. If you'd like, you can create a plate or coaster or whatever you want. I'll hide this one, and the next object is going to be a headphone, something like this one. Okay, it's a very simple object. I'll just go to the side view and bring a circle from the mesh menu and rotate this one in Y direction. Okay, now go to the front view, and in the object editing mode, select edges with 2 and select all the edges and create an extrusion like this. Okay, now I'll add a loop cut over here and scale these up, and then you can create an extrusion, scale these down the both sides, and I can scale this out a bit, create one more loop cut over here, maybe, yeah, move this inside, maybe scale this up. I'm just trying to get the correct form which looks good. I'll create an extrusion, move this inside, and create another one and scale it up. Okay, same thing over here, create an extrusion, move it inside and scale it up. Okay, so this is something like the foam part, the outer part of the headphone. And I'll create another circle over here, rotate this one into 90 degree, type 90 on the keyboard and Y for the Y direction. You can see it's so much faster with the keyboard. Now I'll scale this entire loop and create an extrusion, move this one into X direction, create another one and scale it down, and create another extrusion and move this out with something like this. Okay, and what I can do is now another extrusion, scale this down, and I can just type grid fill and close this one. Over here I can create bevel to make this round, and one loop cut over here. Now this loop cut is so that we can select this face and create an inset over here, and now you can control click over here to make it something like a wire. Okay, but before that I'll insert this one more time. Now I'll go to the front view, control click few times so that I have something which looks like a wire. Okay, I can select this entire thing and scale this one in -1 direction. We just need this part. Press Ctrl plus to expand your selection and Ctrl I to invert your selection and delete all these faces. Now move these inside and select these edges and extrude this inside and extrude and scale them up. Okay, if you want you can add more details into it. I can just select these and expand the selection and extrude again inside, extrude and scale it down, extrude again and move it outside. You see I have another layer of detail over here then, and this one I think definitely can use one bevel. Same over here, one bevel. Yeah, that's just fine. I'm going to bring another circle and delete half the edges, delete edges and select all the edges and extrude them into Y direction like this. Okay, and I'll select all the faces and extrude them again to give them some thickness. And what I can do is I can add some more detail over here. With the circle selection I'll select these center faces and make a duplicate with Shift D, and from shrink and flat, with the shrink and flat I can make this one a bit thicker so that I have something which looks like this. Now I'll move this entire thing in the center and start connecting the parts. Okay, now I'll select this face and go to the front view. Maybe with the proportionate editing on I can just adjust this one over here and maybe create another extrusion, add one loop cut in the center so that we can drag these two and make something like this. Maybe add another one and select these tiny two faces and match it with the radius. I'm going to pull this out a bit. Now I can now there's a modifier which actually which you can use to simply mirror everything on the other side, but we will discuss the modifiers later. So I'm going to duplicate this entire thing, scale, press S and type -1 on the number pad and press X to flip it in the X direction. Okay, and yeah, actually we are going to use the mirror modifier right away. What I'll do is I'll select all these faces and delete them. Okay, so that whatever we did over here, we don't have to do over here. Select from the modifier properties, select mirror, and you can see everything is mirrored, and only half of the model is what we needed. Now any changes you do over here are going to like mirror on the left side as well. I'll go to the wireframe mode and select these faces and switch on the proportional editing, and I'll select the face and create something like this, and I'll select the face over here and create something and bring it over here. Okay, I'll simply bring one cube over here. Sorry, yeah, I'll shape this up a bit. I'll give it some radius, and now you can see we have pretty decent looking headphones. Now you can, well, this is just to give you idea that how few of these commands work. So I'll select these two, I'll press Ctrl J and to combine them, and subdivision surface to smooth this geometry out. I can use subdivision surface over here as well, but I would need some more loops on the sides so that these corners are much sharper. And I'll select these 4 loops and press Ctrl B to bevel these edges. Now I'll select just the outer edges and press Ctrl B to bevel the edges. You can combine these two as well if you need, and apply smooth shading. So yeah, we have some headphones. Okay, so I'm going to create another collection over here and name this one headphones, and select all these objects and drag these inside headphones. Now we'll create one simple apple. Now to do that, I'll bring one UV sphere over here and scale this up, okay, from bounding box center. All right, now what I can do is I can start shaping this sphere we have. So I can select these 2 vertices and switch this button for proportional editing, or just simply press O on the keyboard, and then I'll scale these down, and I can scale up the brush, and you can see it's pulling both the vertices towards each other, and now I can start shaping this up like an apple. Okay, now what I can do is, first of all, I can make this one look a little random. Now to do that, in the proportionate editing, I'll just select random. Sorry, yeah. So what I can do is I can select any edge, and then I can just scale this up. Now from here, what I can do is I can change the size a bit, maybe. Yeah, now I can just select smooth over here and start shaping this up like an apple. Okay, just go to different views, maybe bring another one over here, this one front and this one side view. We can select this entire loop and bring this down and give it like a random shape, a nice looking organic form. Okay, just select different sides and break the shape as much as possible. With the proportionate editing enabled, you can select one edge and just start sculpting instead of having to select loops and vertices. Alright, I think this does look like an apple. I can select few of these points, the edges, and move them down. Move this down a bit, and yeah, this definitely looks like an apple. I would eat it. Now just shade this smooth. Yeah, you can see we have a very organic looking form over here. Now I'll create a duplicate out of this just in case if I mess up the shape a bit. Now what we can do is disable this modifier and select all these faces over here and just delete it, okay? And I can select this entire edge loop and extrude and scale it inside, okay? And maybe create another extrusion and pull this inside again, create another extrusion, scale this down, and now what we can do is we can simply extrude this and start forming up the stem of an apple. So yeah, I think we have a good looking stem. Just create an extrusion and maybe extrude this inside again. Make everything as organic as possible because the natural forms are like very asymmetrical. You can add some detail over here as well if you want, but I'm going to just leave it as it is. And maybe what we can do is we can create one leaf over here, okay? You can simply go to the top view and bring up a plane, okay? And I'll scale this up like this, go to the edit mode and maybe add few loop cuts with Control R. Now I can just pull this out, scale these down and scale these up with the proportionate editing on. I'll press O for proportionate editing and scale these down again. So I am not sure what the leaf of an apple looks like, but this is just to give you an idea. Now to bend this leaf, what I can do is I can go to the front view and place my cursor over here, and from the transform pivot I can choose 3D cursor instead of bounding box. So instead of center, now my rotation will take place from here. Now with proportionate editing on, if I start turning object now, you can see it's rotating from here, I mean from this point. Now if I increase the brush size, you can see my leaf is taking nice rotation. In this view you can see. Okay, now I'll select this side and I'll rotate this one like this, and I can select these two sides, these 6 edges, and move them up like this. I'll reduce the size of proportionate editing and move them up like this, and let's apply one subdivision surface over here, and we need some hard looking edge over here. I mean, I'll select this enter edge loop, press Ctrl B and give it some bevel, and maybe if you want to just stylize this one, you can press V and break this one. Okay, this is just for fun. You can if you want, you can create another edge loop to make this one sharper. You see, with a combination of such simple commands like the edge loops and just the extrusion, we are creating almost all shapes possible. Okay, so I'll select everything, I'll create one extrusion to give it some depth, and I'll select these two faces, go to the front view and create one extrusion out of it. I know this is not a good looking shape, but I'll see if I can fix this one up. Okay, I'll change the pivot point to bounding box again and just place it over here, scale this down. You can combine these two if you want, like but I'll leave it as it is for now. Okay, so I can get rid of this. I think my apple shape is pretty decent. Shade smooth. Now these polygons you can see, because we are in a we have this cavities option of on right now. If I switch it off, you can see I see very nice smooth looking apple. Okay, so I'll switch on the overlays again. I'll make another collection and name this one an apple, and move this inside this collection. Okay, so the next shape I'm going to create one trumpet, something like this one. I mean a musical instrument it is. Okay, it's a very simple process. You can just bring a circle, and I'm trying to create as many objects as possible, just so that you can follow this tutorial and get comfortable with how to bring out the different shapes, and feel much confident about it. So with this circle selected, I'll create an extrusion and scale this down, and move this inside like this. Okay, I'll create another extrusion over here and one more over here. Alright, now I'll create a duplicate of this and place it over here and make it like this. And now I can select this entire loop and place my mouse over here and choose the spin command to create a nice looking round shape here. Okay, alright, once you are done, now it's important that you check the axis. If the rotation is happening in other side, in weird side, you can always flip this. Okay, like in X, Y, Z, wherever you want. Okay, I'll press enter, and now what I can do is get rid of these faces and close these two loops. I'll press bridge edge loops in the search one, and similarly create another spin over here. I'll press with the tool active, I'll click somewhere here, and with the mouse I can always adjust the shape later. Now these kind of shapes are very easy to make with spline tools as well, but sometimes if you're modeling an object with polygon, and you'll have to bring one circular shape like this, so it's important that you understand how this one works. Now I'll go over here, and maybe I can create another spin. I don't clearly remember how the shape of trumpet exactly looks. I mean, I'm sure there is some structure. I just want to make something which looks like a trumpet. Sorry, I think I could have made that radius much better. I can make it like this. Yeah, and press enter, and then I can extrude this upwards. So I'll select all these faces and just make sure everything is selected, and separate this one, separate selection, and I'll bring the origin to center, origin to geometry, and now I can make this one look like those switches you have in trumpet. Pardon my knowledge about this instrument. I clearly don't want to get into details right now. So, and I'm using the extrude command, and then I can just type grid fill and close this one. And what I can do now is I can use mirror modifier, so that, sorry, I'll isolate this one. You can see it's flipping the it's making the same changes which we worked over here are applied over here as well. Okay, I'll exit the mod. All right, so I'll select this area, these edges, and maybe create one bevel over here. And I need some roundness over here. It's looking too flat, and I need some like smooth looking transition over here. And then you can create one loop cut here, and with the alt right click you can select this entire area and extrude this out. I'll shade smooth this one. Now there's some problem over here. I think the direction of the normal is messed up somewhere here. So what you can do is you can select all the faces, just type normal in search menu. So what I did was I clicked on average normals so that everything is in the same direction. Actually, I was looking for another command which is called make normal consistent, but I'm not able to find it over here. But I guess this command works as well. Now I'm going to create glasses. I'll bring a cube over here and place it right here and start shaping the border, the outer frame of the glasses. Okay, so first I'll create one simple extrusion and bring it over here. Yeah, so I'll control click over here, control click over here, and create another one, and maybe select these two faces and delete. Okay, and I'll select these edge loops with the alt and type bridge and close this one. Okay, and I'll select this face and extrude it in X direction. So you can see I have this very nerdy looking glass frame. Now I can create a loop cut over here and loop cut over here, and I can select these faces and extrude them in Y direction and scale this down and go to the side view and control click over here, control click over here, and give it a nice handle. Okay, I'll select all these faces with the box selection, or you can simply paint this with the circular selection with the C. Okay, and I'll use extrude along normals and create two extrusions out of it, so that when we use smooth command it doesn't look very smooth. Subdivision surface. Alright, I'll delete this one, and like before I'm going to apply a mirror modifier. Okay, now the mirror modifier actually works with the origin point. So what I will do is I'll place this one over here in the center and select all the faces and move them on the left. And if you want, you can make more adjustments and maybe bring a loop cut over here and make this one smooth. Maybe bring a loop cut and make this one sharp, and you can select all these faces. Like this one, you can extrude along normal 2 times to give it some thickness. Okay, shade smooth. I'll select these, and what I can do is I can switch on the proportionate editing. Right now it's set to connected only, so it's working with the whatever is connected to this point. But what I want is I want the bottom area to move as well. So I'll disable this and project from the view. Move this in Y direction. It's something like this, and maybe move this in X direction and maybe rotate it a bit, and you can select these faces. There are two faces, and extrude it. And if you want, you can select all these faces and use extrude again 2 times to give it some thickness like this. Okay, now to create the glass part, what we can do is simply duplicate this entire thing and add an edge loop over here. Okay, the loop cut over here. Now I can select and duplicate this one with the Shift D and invert the selection with Control I and delete everything else. Alright, now you see we have only the internal part of the edge. Now to simplify this one, there are few unnecessary edges which are not required for the glass part. I'll select these vertices and press delete to dissolve vertices. Now I won't delete, because by deleting a vertex I'll get rid of edges as well. Instead I just want to dissolve these and leave the edges behind. Dissolve vertices. I'll get rid of these two, and I can delete these two as well. Okay, now if I select all of these edges now and type grid fill, now I think the number of edges needs to be even. So for that I can either add one or get rid of one. So I'll delete this one, dissolve vertex, and grid fill. Now you'll see I have this nice looking glass shape which fits exactly like the internal frame. And I'll just close the gaps, and yeah, I think we can select the outer edges or all the faces and scale it up a bit. If you want, you can extrude it and give it a thickness, but I'll leave it as it is. Okay, now we'll quickly bring a UV sphere over here and Alt G and bring it at the center. Now what we can do is we can select this one, and with the soft selection on, the proportionate editing on, I can move this up and adjust the radius of the brush with the scroll wheel until it looks something like an egg. Okay, so this one looks like an egg now. Now what I want to do is I want to make a broken egg. Okay, so to do this I'll go to the edit view and start creating broken edge. Okay, now to do that I'll press K on the keyboard, cut it from somewhere over here. Okay, now I'll create a custom cut which looks like a broken egg. Sorry about that. Just keep clicking on the edges until you have a closed loop, and we can go over here if you want. Maybe something like this. Yeah, press enter. Now I'll select these faces with circle. I'll press C on the keyboard and start selecting these. Alright, with the middle mouse I'll deselect these, and I think this is complete selection. What I can do is I can separate this one, separate selection, and I can move this out maybe. Now if you want to make it more interesting, you can simply make this one into something like this, or I'm just trying to find the perfect angle for this. Yeah, something like this. We have something which looks like an egg, So to create a piggy bank, I'll bring a cube. What we can do is we can select this face, stretch it out, and select all the edges, all the faces, and smooth this out like this. Okay, now select this one and extrude it out, and select these two and extrude along the normals like this. Now we can select these two and insert it inside and extrude them inside again. I'll insert this one and maybe insert this one more time, and we'll select these two edges and scale them down vertically. Okay, now we'll select these faces and delete them, or you can extrude them inside. Now I can select these four faces and extrude them along normals, and if you want you can scale them with in the local axis, and if you want you can create a tail from here with a control click, scale it down, control click, scale it down. Over here I'll create another inset, maybe you can extrude it inside, and just like that we have a very decent looking piggy bank. Okay, I can shade smooth. This form could be much better than what I have right now. We need another edge loop over here. I'll add a loop cut with a control R. If you want you can scale this in Y direction with the smooth selection on to make it more rounder, and I'll leave it as it is. Okay, one last object, and it's going to be a banana. Okay, I'll bring a cube, scale this down, control click over here with the face selected, control click over here and control click another. Okay, and with this face selected I can control click over here, control click over here, and another extrusion just like this. Now to make this one six-sided, I'll press Ctrl R and scale them up in global, and scale them up in I'll select this entire loop and scale it out in y-axis, and another loop cut over here and scale this up in z-axis. Okay, maybe a bit more, something like this. And now with proportionate editing on, you can shape this banana a bit more. Now what I need to do is I need to make these edges sharper with the Control B, and I can also make these ones sharper with Control B, and just one division, and shade smooth. And now I can adjust the form a bit. Alright, something, and what we'll do is we'll select all the faces. Yeah, we'll select all the faces and press Shift D and create a duplicate out of this. And now I'll go and to shrink and flatten in the wireframe mode and shrink it a bit to make the inside of banana. Now I'll separate this entire outer object. I'll bring my mouse on the outer edge and press L, and the entire object is selected, and separate this one by selection. Yeah, I'll isolate this one, and I'll see if I can peel this off maybe. Now to do that, I'll select these edges over here, and I'll press V. I'll press V on the keyboard to break these, and now I'll enable the connected only, and I'll start moving this out. I'll place my pointer over here With the 3D cursor enabled in pivot point, I can move this and rotate this one. Control plus to increase the selection. Control plus again, and just turn it out like this. Okay, now the inside part is a little messed up. What I can do is I can get rid of all these faces. I can go to the wireframe and get rid of all these faces. Control plus plus faces, and just leave it as it is. And with the subdivision enabled, it's going to look just fine. Now I can select this area and make another peel from here. Okay, I'll press V to break this out, and sorry about that. Connected only. V. Yeah, so I just broke few edges, and now I can place my pointer over here and place my pointer over here maybe, and start unfolding the banana. Okay, so yeah, I mean it maybe I mean it's not detailed, but it does look like a banana peel a little. Alright guys, so I think we are going to stop here for now, and I think this is already enough for your first day, and it's okay if you can't finish this in one day. It's going to take some time to get used to all of this, but the important thing here is to practice how to bring out different shapes. And the core of every software is to get used to the interface and the modeling. Okay, if you can just learn the basic modeling, and the rest of the things are going to be pretty easy for you. Okay, now what you can do is just to conclude your day, like how we assign very basic colors to the first day chapter materials, and how we prepared a render out of it. For this scene also you can simply give it some very basic material. Okay, now what you can do is first you need to bring a camera. Okay, and just like I mentioned in previous chapter, don't get into any render details or material details. This is just so that you can save a render out of it, and maybe share it with your friends. Okay, so first just make sure you have all the objects visible, and just prepare a nice layout out of it. Then I'll click somewhere and press Shift A to bring a camera. Okay, now press Ctrl Alt and 0. Ctrl Alt 0 will align my camera to the perspective I was looking into. Now I need to zoom in and out a bit, so I'll press N. Sorry, I'll just enable my screencast. So I'll press N to bring this side panel, and click on the lock camera to view. So now I can move my camera. Okay, alright, so this view is good enough, and I think I can save some good render out of it, and I'll disable this again and press N. Okay, and now make sure you are into cycle renders, or here also you can go to the world properties. From the color of the background, click over here at the color of the background, and click on environment texture. Click on open button, and just go to your Blender folder. Okay, I'll go to my Blender folder, which is your default HDRs going to be in Blender folder, data files, studio lights, world, and over here you can see all the HDR which you see over here in the viewport. Okay, so I'm going to select maybe this studio.exr and use this in the world. Okay, now let's see what is happening in the render. Okay, so as you can see, it's creating some interesting shadows over here, Now what I can do is I can select the apple and create one new material and give it some color. Okay, and that's about it. That's all you need to do. Now select everything, and now you can select this apple to make this active apple, I mean active object. Now press Ctrl L to transfer the material from this apple to rest of the objects. Okay, I'll press Ctrl L and make links my material. Alright, now if you render it, you'll see the red color is in all the objects. Okay, now if you want, you can experiment more with the HDR. Maybe bring one nice like a hard shadow over here, or maybe interior HDR. Or what you can do is select the background panel which we have over here, and press Ctrl 0 to press 0 to go back to camera view. Now I'll select this background panel and delete the material and bring a new one. Okay, so that I can create some contrast. Alright, so just play with the right color settings and choose your favorite colors and just give it a nice look, and you should be able to render a decent with just these settings. Okay, alright, so I'm going to choose the sunset.exr, and I'm going to change this color to red as well. Alright, and what I can do is I can increase the intensity a bit. Okay, now increase this intensity of the background to 2 so that you have more contrast in the image. Alright, now when you're ready, you can click over here, render image, and from here in the render output you can change the resolution you want. Okay, and render your image, and this is just for fun, and you should have something to look into at the end of your hard working day. Okay, so this should render your image, and once you're done you can go over here and save your image. Okay, alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed your second day of Blender, and like I said, if you are not able to finish everything in one day, that is okay, take it slowly, but the most important thing here is to keep practicing until you understand what is going on. Okay, like get used to all the commands we are discussing, and just get comfortable with the software. Okay, in the next chapter what we are going to do is we'll discuss modifiers, and just like how we created objects today, we are going to create few objects and understand what the modifiers are and what their meaning is. They are a very powerful thing to work with, and they are a lot of fun. Okay, so I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the third chapter, and it's going to be really fun, and you'll see some very powerful stuff in the third day. Okay, so have a good day, and I'll see you guys in the next chapter.